We got it on and popping. Pretty good, busy week. A lot of stuff going on. Mostly basketball stuff. But yeah, it's been going. It's been moving. Stuff in the women's game has been crazy. You had the situation with Utah where they had to leave their hotel. As crazy as that sounds, for because they were being racially harassed. What's good, Cody K? 88 SMC. My guy Jason Sink, Chris Bruce, always the first ones out the limo. I appreciate you. But yeah, this morning, man, before I get into the Eagles talk, I was looking at the situation that happened. I guess it was 2-3 days ago with Utah, in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. They were about 30 minutes outside of Spokane, where the tournament was actually taking place. But because the guys are there and everybody's in Spokane for the tournament, they couldn't actually stay in the city. So that's not unusual. They used to do that all the time. When I was in school, Eastern Kentucky was about maybe a half-hour drive from University of Kentucky. So when Kentucky had big events, you would have spillover in Richmond, Kentucky, which, like I said, was about 30 minutes away. So, but apparently the team was walking to a restaurant that was close to the hotel. Had to be close if they were walking. And apparently there were cars, trucks parked close by, revving engines with Confederate flags, hollering the N-word out the window and things of that nature. So I was just watching the press conference with the mayor of Coeur d'Alene and all that kind of stuff. So it was interesting in looking at some of the reactions and how people still sometimes it's fun to me. It's funny because people want to act like, how does this stuff still happen? And it's like, if you ask that question, you're not paying attention. So, but in any case, on to our Eagles. The owners meeting happened this week. So everybody was down in Orlando getting their tans, talking to all of the owners, and that's where you saw the obviously it's going to be a viral meme. Somebody got a picture of Jerry Jones at the owners meeting. Basically, he was sitting in a chair with a notepad. It was like an NFL notepad, and he had scribbled some gibberish on the notepad. I don't know if he was trying to write something or if he was just, idly killing time, but somebody took that picture, made it a meme, and it's like, yeah, this is Jerry's plans for the Cowboys going in the future, and basically he's just scribbling. It's nothing legible. So I thought that was funny. Chris, I have not watched the New Heights podcast yet. I did see the clips with Saquon. I thought they were hilarious, especially the one that he was like, you don't have to watch. I thought that was crazy funny. So, yeah, I don't see Jason Kelce coming back. So, you know what? Jason Kelce's going to talk all of that stuff. He's gonna constantly bring up coming back. And let me say this. Now, my career was nowhere near what Kelce's was, but when you walk away from that game, doesn't matter if you walk away or if the game spits you out. Almost every player will have some type of remorse about, like, should I stayed longer? Should I have done this? Should I have done that? And you try to look back on what you did or didn't do. And if you want to decide to continue, did you make the right decision? Like things like that. I went through that when I stopped playing in 97. And I was with the Eagles for only 2 years, really a year in a preseason before I got cut because of Charlie Garner. And then I went to the World League. I bounced around a couple camps, went to the World League, did 3 seasons with the World League, and then a season in Canada before I shut it down. And even after Canada, one of my best friends, Ron Carpenter, won a Super Bowl with the Rams when Vermeil was there. But I was talking to Ron, and he was telling me about the XFL. The XFL was coming back. That was the first iteration of the XFL, with the whole wrestling thing and all of the craziness that it was with McMahon and all of that kind of stuff. And I had an application. I had filled out an application, and I was sitting. If you're from South Jersey, you'll understand what I'm saying. I was sitting in the parking lot of what was it, Borders Books? Or I think it was a Barnes and Noble on route where it's the 7370 intersection, right across from ShopRite. Those in South Jersey know where I'm talking about. Jason, not far from not far from Sagemore. But I was sitting in the Barnes and Noble parking lot. I had already filled out an application for the XFL, and I believe I was going to go into Barnes and Noble and see if there was a way I could fax it, because everybody was faxing back then. And I must have sat. I talked to my boy Ron for probably about half an hour. He told me to fill it out. I did, and I was on the phone with my wife and she kept telling me, she's like, get it out of your system. If you still want to play, go play. But I had such a bad experience with my last 2 seasons in football, with what happened to me in 97 in the World League, or in 98, 95, 6, 7. Yeah, so 97 in the World League. And then also what happened in Canada in the CFL. It just left a bad taste in my mouth, man. So I was like fed up with it. And you hear people say, when it's not fun anymore, you walk away. And for me, I was not enjoying it anymore. So ultimately, I ended up ripping up the application. I did not send it. And I ended up pounding the pavement and getting a job in my field from college, which was mechanical design and CAD work. So long story long, it ends up where I am now. But man, I tell you, it doesn't matter if you had a short career, long career, or somewhere in between. When you walk away from the sport, it does something to you, and you think about a lot of things, and you second guess yourself on what you should or shouldn't have done. So, because you hear Jason Kelce, and then I heard Whitworth talk about it. When Whitworth, he was 40 years old playing for the Rams before he won the Super Bowl. So his last year playing football, he finally got a ring. He had lost one before. He had, when he was in his 30s when he had like knee injuries. So he stuck it out. So, but it's an interesting dynamic that players go through when they do decide to walk away. Like I said, you give it all that you got, and when things don't work your way, it is a mental hurdle. It is a mental game that you have to play to get over certain things. It's real interesting how that manifests. And usually it's something in your own head. It's not, sometimes it's something that other people say, but it's more like self-created. So, so when I hear Jason Kelce say stuff like that, or, I know he's joking, but don't get it twisted. He does think about that. But, that all of that'll be balanced by he'll have a moment with one of his daughters, and it'll just wipe all that stuff away. So, and he achieved the ultimate goal. He played long enough. He's almost more popular now than before he played. He got his chip. He did get to the Super Bowl. So he's pretty much done everything. He's going to go to the Hall of Fame. And I can't wait. One of these days, that's one of my goals. I gotta hook up with him and talk with him for like 2 minutes. Just 2 minutes. I'm like, dude, tell me about your experience in Cincinnati. I was born and raised, bro. You know what I'm saying? So he was there well after I was there, but still. Yeah, we could speak the same language a little bit from time down in downtown Cincinnati at on UC's campus. So appreciate that, Jason. Yeah, I made it to the top 1% of my class, I like to say. I only had a cup of coffee in the league, but it was my cup of coffee. So, but yeah, man. I was listening to Jeffrey Lurie today. I was listening to his whole speech at the owners meeting, and I was taking some notes. And I thought I used to. Um, I've always thought of Jeffrey Lurie in a good light, and from nothing. I mean, I respect what he's done as a business owner, the owner of the Eagles, and everything that comes with that. But from my personal experience with Jeffrey Lurie, just the times that I meet up with him and connect and shake his hand and take pictures with him. If you saw the thumbnail, that was at an alumni event. I don't know how many years ago, but he's always been pretty much cordial. And I've told this story before. I've always liked Jeffrey Lurie because after he bought the team, there was a the first preseason game in '94, and I don't remember who we played against, but I remember as we were coming back in the locker room, he was in the locker room shaking everybody's hand that came through the door. And I remember when I walked past him, he grabbed my hand, shook my hand, and said, "Great game, Marcus. Good job," and just kept it moving, kept going down the line. But the reason why that made an impact on me is because in reality, there was no earthly reason he should have really known who I was, but he did. He took that extra effort, and you know what they say about a first impression. But and that always just being kind, just being thoughtful and polite, knowing somebody's name. You know what I mean? So just one of those things. He was always a good dude, and you can see what he's, because most people don't really understand what the Eagles were when Norman Brayman had the team. So for it to go from that to this is impressive. The facilities, I think I said this on Twitter the other day. I saw the video of Saquon walking through NovaCare, meeting everybody, shaking hands, going through the coaches' offices, and all of that type of stuff. And the situation, the way it existed at the vet, and how vastly different it is, and how the overall, how people see the organization because of the NovaCare Center and what it looks like, and just the ambiance that it gives compared to what it was at the vet. You had to go through the door around the side of the stadium, and it was just a different environment, and it, like, you understand what it's like the difference between going to get something to eat at McDonald's and going to eat at Ruth Chris or something like that at a real expensive place. It's a different environment, and it makes you think a little bit differently. So, but Jeffrey Lurie answered a lot of questions. I thought his thoughts on Saquon were interesting because, in my opinion, based on how I perceived it and what he said, was the stuff with Saquon. He looking at Saquon like everybody else does. He's looking at Saquon to be much better with our offensive line and our skill positions. And that's the same thing we're looking for. And I thought that was interesting because he doesn't, I always think of Jeffrey Lurie as a very down to earth dude. He doesn't get all in the hype and all of that kind of stuff. 88, you got to go to the link, bro. You definitely got to go to the link, man. Yeah, definitely check it out. Any game you can go to because link is phenomenal. But yeah, Lurie thinks of Saquon and hoping he can be, like I said, our version of CMC, of Christian McCaffrey. Now, he didn't come out and say that directly, but those are my thoughts. But he seems to think that Saquon is going to have a lot more success with the weapons that we have around him. And I agree 100%. I agree 100%. So I like his real world approach to a lot of things. And and you hear a lot of stuff, and it is now it's everybody's getting sensational about it. Some of the other content creators, like, they take every little thing, and it's not like, if it's not what they expect, they blow it way out of proportion. And it's like, people got to calm down. There's a reason why certain people own and run teams, and there's a reason why others don't. Sometimes I wish I could wave a wand, and all of those people, from fans to content creators to media heads, all them people that think they know what is best for a team, a player, or an organization. I wish I could literally just wave a wand and be like, you run it and let's see how you do it. And kind of switching sports real quick, that's why I have so much respect for Keith Jones with the Flyers. He's somebody that played, obviously, so he's got that experience. But for all of his time that he spent on WIP, doing the same thing we do as fans, doing the same exact thing. Well, this is what I would have done. And this is, I mean, quite honestly, literally, that is why my channel is called Pro Fan Talk. Was a pro, now a fan, and let's talk about it. That's exactly why I called it that. And plus, it rolls off the tongue pretty well. So, but yeah, man, I've always liked Keith Jones because he would always give real world answers. You knew he had experience, so you knew he knew what he was talking about. But he wasn't a GM. He was speaking specifically from a player's perspective, like me, or like Seth, or like Ike, or like Barrett, or any other of the, you know, the former players. But it brings a little bit of common sense to certain situations. And he would also, you know, he would always put that caveat or that preface on it by, it's like, well, I'm not a GM, so I don't know what they have to go through. Well, now he does. And I think that he is the perfect person for the Flyers because of his experience sitting back and watching and being in the situation. Like, I think you should do this. And let me be honest with you, I think a lot of Eagles fans would love to have that same type of outlook for Seth, to be honest with you. Not necessarily as a GM, but as a coach. Because Seth's got a heavy opinion at times, but Seth knows what the hell he's talking about too. So I wish Seth would have had the opportunity to get into coaching, but I don't. My thing was like, he don't want that headache, because if he'd have wanted to coach, he probably would have made it known and would have made some efforts to do that. But like Keith Jones, he's got experience. He sees some things. We were going back and forth on Twitter about the whole hip drop thing. Me as an offensive player, I think it's a good idea because the way it literally just takes people out of the game. Him as a defensive player, it's another rule that is going to benefit the offense, and defense gets penalized. And he's 100% correct. 100%. And it's going to be another they're going to go overboard with the flags at the beginning of the year, and it's going to get on people's nerves. It's going to cost somebody a game. It's going to, like, something stupid, and everybody's going to look at like that's what you calling a. But it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't. The game is changing. I think one of the comments I said to him was like, "This is not our football anymore." Period. Everything that made our era of football great, 80s and 90s and the early 2000s, that whole era of football, that hard-hitting, tough-nosed, John Facenda type football stuff is gone. It is out. It is out. And all of the greats that played in that era are getting forgotten because everything is social media, everything is the next version of 2K or Madden, and that's where these kids, that's how they associate being a good player. What they saw on Madden, or if you weren't in Madden, then you're trash. If your rating wasn't above 75, you're trash. And they really think that. They really think that. So I saw something that was funny about everybody taking digs at Dallas, and the last time Dallas won a championship, Jalen Hurts wasn't born. I had to think about that, like, damn. But the last time Dallas won a championship, Jalen Hurts did not exist. He wasn't even a date yet. So it's pretty interesting stuff. And I say that because people tend to go off of what somebody else is saying. And if you're a current Dallas fan talking about your championships and this, that, or the other, you've never seen it. You only know what other people say. And after a certain amount of time, everybody's going to say the same thing about New England. And then after a certain amount of time, everybody's going to say the same thing about Kansas City. So just give it time. Father Time's undefeated. But Baldy was doing media before he stopped playing, I believe. Because Baldy and Vi Sikahema, they were both doing media while they were still playing. And I know Irvin, when he was with the Eagles, he dabbled in it a little bit too. But I remember the first time seeing Vi on camera, and it was like, because me knowing Vi as, Vi was like the Joker in the locker room. He was the one cracking jokes and putting Vaseline on the phone and telling you had a phone call and doing crazy stuff like that. But when you saw him take off and he got serious with it, and you saw his career, and it's like, he got, him and Baldy, they both got with it early, but 100% correct. Baldy would have been a great offensive line coach. Still would be. But yeah, they got the bug early, and they knew what it took, and they were right ahead of the game, and they got in at the perfect time. And I wish, going back, looking, hindsight is 2020. I wish I would have took that same journey when I stopped playing. I wish I would have immediately got back into football. I always tell people that's my biggest regret, when I stopped playing football. I had such a bad taste in my mouth that I was like, I got to get away from it. I got to step away from it completely. But I wish I would have had the wherewithal to immediately get into coaching. I wish I would have been able to humble myself and immediately, call up Jeffrey Lurie, call up somebody in the Eagles, like, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. Can you help me out? Because your mind says they don't care about you. They're not going to worry about you like that. You didn't play long enough. They don't care. When in reality, they do. If you know somebody, they can speak up for you. And all you got to do is shoot your shot. What they're going to say, no. So, Chris Long said he would hit the knees if he's playing right now. I agree with him. I agree with you, EC1. Yeah, I mean, the whole thing with the hip drop. Here's the thing. That's a learned behavior, because I've said this before. I did not get tackled like that when I played. I don't remember ever getting tackled like that when I was with the Eagles, when I was in the World League, or when I was in Canada. And I broke some long ones in all three instances. Never remember getting tackled like that. Now, I've had people jump on the back of me and take my legs out, but basically they trip you up or something like that. But the hip drop tackle is something new, because basically they use your momentum against you, and they sling their feet around to lock up your legs so you can't go any further. And that's something that just started happening in the last 10, 15 years. And to me, it's almost like if you've ever seen somebody, if you ever played baseball and you see those guys that steal second, that can slide into second base and stand up on their own. They got that talent where they can slide in and they got enough momentum and enough, core strength and balance where as soon as they hit the base, they can pop back up. Everybody can't do that. Even fast people can't do that. I remember, what's up, Cody K? I remember one of the biggest criticisms from Michael Vick was he couldn't slide. He didn't know how to slide. And I used to say to myself, like, dude, how could you be the ultimate athlete and you don't know how to slide? But when I look back, when I used to watch Randall, I don't remember Randall sliding too much. Randall used to run out of bounds, take the hit, but I don't remember Randall sliding that much. But back then, if a quarterback slid, he would still get his head blown up. So that wasn't necessarily a safe move for quarterbacks back in the day. But yeah, man, it's a different, because I look at the hip drop and I see how they do it, and I see people, they got to practice that technique. They got to practice the technique. But once you get it and your muscle memory kicks in, you can do it every time. When you get somebody from that angle, and it happens in a split second, it sounds like it should take longer, but it doesn't. It happens in a split second. And anytime they swing them feet around and they trip up your legs, and depending on the position of your legs, because you're running, and now you got all of that weight coming down on your ankles and your knees. And it's been taking people out. It's been taking people out. So I understand both sides of it. It is another rule that where the defense can't hit anymore. Then, now mind you, you got to remember, all of this goes under the umbrella of the stuff with the concussion protocol. So with the lawsuits and everything like that, the NFL went extra the opposite way. And it does look like every time it just they lower the target zone, and it's weird because I would want to look at, and I'm sure the stats are out there and available, but like, what are the stats for the number of concussions in rugby? Not talking about the rugby we play here in the States, but I'm talking about what they play over Australia rules football, over in, like, where they really get down and dirty, where Jordan Mailata came up. I wonder what the ratio of concussions is in that situation, because they don't play with helmets, and all of them don't play with they got the halo headgear that wraps around. Like, some of them people play with that stuff, but everybody doesn't. But I'm curious as to what their concussion ratio is, because I would guarantee they don't have as many concussions as we have in football, because your head is already exposed. Self-preservation is the first law of nature. So you're not going to lower your head and go into somebody else lowering his head. I'm sure it happens, but probably doesn't happen as much as we do, because basically we in a car crash every time we get in the big hit. I've taken big hits before. I can remember 10 years old. I can remember the first time I got a concussion playing football. I remember that. When I was 10 years old, playing nose guard, West Coast football in St. Louis, Missouri. I was a nose guard. The I don't know what the center did, but he went the wrong way or something, but I came through scot-free, and they handed the ball off to the fullback. And we basically, and because as a kid, you're not mature enough, so you're scared to hit. And then what's the first thing you do when you're scared? You lower your head. And we did that, and we both just fell backwards. And I remember that's the first time I had the tingling fingertips and seeing the spots. That was my first concussion. And I've had other ones where you get your bell rung. The worst one I probably had was when I was in high school. I got a concussion in a game, and I continued to play the whole first half, and I had blacked out, and I didn't like come out of it until halftime. I was in the locker room sitting down. Everything else, I don't know. I couldn't tell you when it happened. I didn't really understand what happened until the next day when we had to come back for film session. And I actually I scored a touchdown and didn't know it. And then literally it was like I'm in the locker room at halftime. People are tapping me on my shoulder. Good job, good game. I just scored a touchdown. And it was like somebody slowly raised a curtain, a black curtain from over my eyes. And as they were doing that, somebody was slowly turning the volume up. That's what it felt like. That's what it felt like. So the NFL's got to worry about that stuff. My fear is defensive coordinator is going to say, screw it. See offensive players, take him out. We handicap anyway, so go out. I mean, ain't no telling what they're going to do, EC. Somebody said, and I thought this made a little bit more sense. Somebody said that eventually the defense is going to go down so much because there's no value in defense, because the rules are so harsh against defense that everybody's going for offense. And the value of the defensive players is just going to continue to go down. That remains to be seen, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. What else? I'm just looking at my notes from Jeffrey Lurie's speech. He talked about Jalen Hurts, and how good a player he is, intelligent, and he made sure he hit all the buzzwords. But essentially, I agree with what he said. His opinions on Jay Hurts were very similar to mine in regards to what people thought of his demeanor and his personality and all of that nonsense that was made up by media heads and all that kind of stuff that were looking for a issue where none existed. And I've said this before, when you have somebody that's the leader of your team, you don't want them to be fake. You don't want them to try to be a rah-rah guy when they are not a rah-rah guy. You got different personalities in the locker room, and you have to let them meld and find their own place in that hierarchy. Because there are, in some situations, there are other players that are, socially ranked higher than the quarterback. But it is a common understanding that even though your wide receiver is the vocal leader of the team, the quarterback is the captain on the field. So even in the locker room, you got somebody else that's a little bit higher. When it comes game time, you understand who's leading the ship and who's calling the order, who's giving orders. So it's a very interesting dynamic. A lot of people don't take to it very well. And what I mean by that is you got some players that they make captains that shouldn't be captains, that are just, they might be a great player or a popular player, but they're not a good leader and a good captain. So that's a very interesting and always shifting dynamic. I never understood the situation that they said with A.J. Brown. I knew exactly what A.J. Brown was talking about and going through. And the people that were saying, whatever they were saying, they didn't know what the deal was. They didn't understand. They didn't know what was going on inside. So they were just making crap up, man. Making it up. So, but yeah, he understands what Jalen Hurts is. Because Jeffrey Lurie had been doing this long enough to understand to a degree, understand what type of player he needs to succeed. If he didn't think for 1 second that Jalen Hurts was that dude, he would not. I repeat, he would not have given him all that money. You look at what New York just did with Daniel Jones. And they let Saquon walk. Now, I understand Saquon was a business decision and they trying to retool and get better. And quiet as kept, I think Dallas is in the same boat. But you can't tell me when all the stuff went down with Saquon, and I'm talking about 2 years ago. They had every opportunity. That man wanted to stay in New York, and the Giants opted to pay the money to Daniel Jones, who hadn't proved he could really do anything. So I don't know. Are they going to draft another quarterback? Because they might find themselves in the same situation again. Because if they draft a quarterback, okay, so that means somebody's on Danny Dimes' heels. So Daniel Jones still has to play well. They still have a suspect offensive line. They got a couple more weapons, but is that going to manifest the way it should? If it doesn't, are you really going to hand the keys to a rookie? You see what happened to Zach Wilson? He wasn't ready. I don't think there's a reason why Zach Wilson was picked second. There's a reason. He doesn't just suck, but again, you got to give these players time to take their lumps, and the NFL doesn't do that no more. And that's why a lot of these teams are struggling. They're not letting these guys take their lumps. Everybody wants to add water and win now, and you cannot do that, especially at the quarterback position. CJ Stroud is an anomaly. Nobody saw that coming. Now, can you, off the top of your head, when's the last time you've seen a rookie quarterback have that type of success like CJ Stroud had? I'm sure I could go on NFL.com or something and find the stats and come up with some names, but off the top of my head, I can't really think of any rookie QB that has really had that type of success. Maybe Brock Purdy. But Brock Purdy, you know, with the weapons and the way Brock Purdy, I liken that more to Tom Brady situation when he came in for Drew Bledsoe. But Brock Purdy did it his rookie year. So, and you see what he did this year. He played well enough to get him back to the Super Bowl. And even when he did that, people still didn't believe him. So, but it's hard to name other ones, man. You saw what happened with Bryce Young. You saw what happened early with CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson. You still got to be able to process everything, or you got to stay healthy. Andrew Luck was good, but he took his lumps too. He had issues too. So, but that's a good example. But my point is, you really got to think about it. You really got to think about it. How many players like really set it off like that at quarterback, at QB, that really turned out to be that dude? And even Andrew Luck, as good as he was, you know, he never made it to the Super Bowl. Damn, they don't even have interesting. Andrew Luck doesn't even pop up on the NFL directory on NFL.com. That's got to be a mistake. Wow, he does not pop up. Yeah, he didn't get no support. I mean, but look at Bryce Young in Carolina. That offensive line is worse than New York Giants. That Joker was getting his behind beat. He was getting killed. His offensive line was god awful, and they just took that offensive lineman. And the only reason I know this is because they got this kid from North Carolina State where Devin Leary was playing. They got that dude, the Nigerian dude, Eki Okwini or something like that. They drafted him early, and dude, they had that kid on the turnstile. So he wasn't getting much help. He was not getting much help. Every time he was dropping back, he was running for his life. So, but he's going to be better next year with more weapons and different things like that. But your leash is so much shorter now because everybody wants it instant. Everybody wants to put somebody. You don't know what's going to happen with CJ Stroud next year. You don't know if he's going to have that same success. You just don't know. You just don't know. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with it. It'll be interesting to see how people react to CJ Stroud. Now we got they said the same thing about Jalen. You got a whole year's worth of tapes. Now we know how to stop the RPO and all of that kind of stuff. And it didn't necessarily work out like that, but because the situation was different, he got hurt. We had a new coordinator. Because I wonder what would have happened if Shane Steichen would have stayed. Will we have had that same success? And as bad as we look towards the end, we still got to the playoffs. Look at what happened with Jacksonville. Jacksonville started off, 8-1 or something like that? 8-2. Jacksonville started off good. They didn't make it to the playoffs. So and back to Jeffrey Lurie when he was talking about Sirianni looking at the big picture and looking at everything that has happened for the last 3 years. And I thought that was key because what that tells me is we got an owner that doesn't have knee-jerk reactions. He needed to be fired and everything. And let me be honest with you. I didn't. If Sirianni would have gotten fired, I would have understood it. Because the way it looked, it wasn't a good look. It wasn't a good look. So he again, for me, it is a very logical, common sense way of thinking. And that's why we are in the situation that we are in right now. So for all the people that didn't want Sirianni to come back, you still could be proven right. He could crash and burn next year. I don't think that's going to happen because there's a reason why the locker room didn't implode like everybody thought it was. And it's because of Nick Sirianni. Whether you like him or not as a coach, Nick Sirianni has the type of attitude that people like. He will talk to you where you live. He will talk to you at your level, not above you. And he's passionate, sometimes to a fault, but people like that. He's a guy that'll go to bat for you. And players like that. So I'm hoping that Sirianni, having these coaches and everything, he can get it together. He can get the Eagles back on top where they should be. And I think he can do that. And all the people that are still bitching and moaning about a CEO coach, they don't pay attention to what wins in the NFL. You need game managers and things like that. You don't need somebody that's a guru. Once again, see what San Francisco just did. And they had a guru on the sidelines. Didn't help them. They still lost. So, Chris, he's not that bad. First 3 seasons with no prior coaching experience, and you got 3 playoff appearances. What's the problem? And that's when people and fans, they get to listening to the sports radio and the media heads because they don't like a specific thing. And all they do is harp on that specific thing. And that's all you see. So you think that that person is horrible. They did the same thing with Saquon. How many comments did I see talking about Saquon can't pass block? And I'm like, what the hell are y'all looking at? I went back and watched last night, and I'm trying to work on something for this. I went back and look. I watched 2 games last night. I'm gonna watch some more of the Giants offense. Most of the time, Saquon, they didn't keep Saquon in there blocking. And this is on first, second, or third down. Saquon was out in pass patterns, either check downs, wides, or he was running a route against a linebacker. Rarely did Saquon Barkley stay in and block. And a couple times that I saw him stay in and block, he was fine. Now he gonna lose some because the guys on the other side of the ball get paid too. But for the most part, Saquon was a decent pass blocker. So I don't know where they're getting all this stuff from. Well, I do know because that was one of the things that Tiki used to criticize Saquon Barkley on. And maybe he was not a great pass blocker at that particular time, but that was 4 years ago. So you can't, I'm not putting no stock into that. So, but yeah, Jeffrey was good. I'm going to finish watching some more stuff. It looks like Justin Simmons is crashing and burning. He's not coming to Philly, but you never know what's going to happen. We still got a lot of time. Still no news on Hassan Reddick. And we're going to keep it moving until the draft. Right. So make sure you come back. I'm about to get up out of here. I will be live streaming tomorrow on Pro Fan Talk at 7 p.m. So stay tuned. And I will see you in the next one. I will catch you guys later. Enjoy the rest of your day. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace. Go Birds.